Hey, digital audio tape fans, I have another DAT machine to repair. This is another mail-in from one of my customers down in the States. And this one's a DAP1 Tascam. This one chews up the tapes and has a few things wrong with it. We're going to discover what it is. Let's check it out. Got another Tascam DAP1. This is a portable unit. This one here came in. Same guy that sent me the beat up DA30. Same customer. And it's got, of course, the sticky rubber on it again. It's like they're all like this. This one here, they can't even open the battery compartment on. It's stuck. Of course, there's a battery in it that's not going to be any good. He probably doesn't want that sent back with it either because it's just extra weight. And didn't send me an adapter, but I have one because I've got one of these machines now. Let's see what this one's doing. This one's got a few problems. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. You're just going to have to watch to see what I discover. This one's quite involved. Get my power adapter all set up and ready to go here. What I will tell you is it does not fast forward, it does not rewind, and it eats tapes. So a major mechanical problem that needs to be resolved on this one. And it's going to take a while to figure this one out. I had to take it apart 3 times. Got the heat going in out here today because it's a little bit chilly. Okay, that closed that time. I wonder if it's just going to be our classic belt. I bet you it's just our classic belt problem on this. Is that tends to be a very common problem on these. Although he did say it did chew up the tape, so maybe I want to put this thing through its motions without putting a tape in it. So we'll take the top cover off and observe what it does with no tape installed. I want to make sure that the tape spools actually spin. So if I drop the tape into position, tape spool is turning. That's good. Let's try rewind. Fast forward. Rewind. The rewind spool is not turning. How about fast forward? So the spool's not turning, and of course when it ejected the tape, nothing turned. Well, now it does. What the heck? Must be something sticking. Must be something sticking in here. If we look closely, see, once this unit is threaded, it'll actually go through the motions. So if I go to fast forward, the spool is not turning here. I know what you're thinking. You see that brake pad that's just kind of loose there. Is that the problem? No, it's not. On play, the spool turns. We are going to fix that. And 2 other faults. So now I've let the cat out of the bag. There's actually 3 things wrong with this, all on the mechanism. I'm going to show you guys how to fix it, because the parts aren't available for these things. But not on rewind. But it's fixable, and I'm sure this is going to show up on other units that use this chassis. See the gear spinning? Something's gummed up in here. Okay, so I know where I need to look on this. Something's stopping the gears from engaging for fast forward and rewind, but yet on play, as you can see, the hub turns. If I put it into play, the hub turns as it's supposed to. It's not something that's gummed up. I'll tell you that right now. There's a broken plastic part and another fault. Not when it goes into fast forward or rewind. And the brakes. Okay, so now we know where we're up against on this one. This chassis was used on multiple Tascam DAT models. I have to figure out how to get this mechanism apart. We'll first start by taking the top cover off. Okay, top cover comes off. Now we can examine the deck. The deck will lift out of this actually, I think, quite easily on these ones, if I'm not mistaken. There should be a couple screws, and the whole deck, I think, lifts out on these ones like the other ones. Let's just see here. Input select board and the bottom cover needs to come off to access some connectors for easy removal of the mechanism. But we'll get there eventually. I believe the DA30 Mark II uses the same mechanism as this, and even the DA40, I don't know if it's exactly the same, but I know the DA30 Mark II is the same mechanism. It's got that same toothed belt, because I had one where that belt came off on a DA30 Mark II. And other than this being a top loader and the other one being a drawer loader, the mechanism is the same. And the 40 might be. I'd have to go back and look at my 40 to see whether the actual drive mechanism is the same. It might be the same drive mechanism on the DA40 as well. I'll have to open mine up and look at it and see. I don't want to open it though, because there's nothing wrong with it. But for sure, the DAP20 TAC also is very similar to this. Anyway, 4 screws to come out to lift out the deck, and then a bunch of cables that need to be unplugged, which I found out taking it apart the first time that, yes, you got to pull the board out on the right to put the connectors back together. Might as well pull it out to take them apart.
Plugs to undo here. The whole thing should lift out.
See what I mean? Yes, you can lift it out part of the way, but there are 4 cables that go down to the bottom of the main board, and then there's 3 that plug in here at the side.
The whole deck lifts out. It's getting these plugs back in that's going to be the fun part. Not a lot of slack left on them. There's one there.
I'm going to take the bottom off this unit so I can pull the chassis. It'll save you guys the pain of watching me figure this out. Because, you see those 2 cables, or 4 cables going to the bottom, will just unplug easily once the bottom's off. But that board on the right needs to be lifted out in order to reinstall the cable. So there's about 6 screws that have to come out, and then that board just lifts right out.
Oh, it's okay. Okay, I got to take out these screws that hold the board, and I think I got to get underneath this board to see what's going on. See where the plugs are, because I can't see them from the bottom. So lift that board out of the way, and at least it makes the plugs a little bit more accessible when it comes time to plug them back in. But they're still not easy to get at. There's a plug on the back I can undo here. This one for the head drum motor. I think it's this one right over there. I can undo that one. And I can lift the mechanism out to work on it. That's the only one. Maybe 2 of them. 2 connectors. The ones with the colored wires. Got to come out of this one here. Pull the entire deck out. There. Now I can work on the actual deck. To release the cassette, just do that. That'll open up the cassette mechanism.
Next, we're going to remove the cassette holder assembly to access the mechanism. To do that, I have to remove the preamp, as the preamp is in the way. So there's 2 screws that come out and 1 plug to remove the head preamp. And now I just have to remove the 2 cut washers on either side and the 2 springs and the cassette housing will lift out. It's actually easier than it seems. It took me a few minutes to figure out the first time, but the second and third time I had this thing out just like that. This one had more than one fault, and I didn't find it out until I put it together and had to take it apart again.
Well, I see part of the problem is the brake. There's a brake pad here that's jammed up, come loose. That might be part of the problem. These rubber brake pads, which came apart on mine too. This one, at least the brake pads aren't missing, but this brake pad right here is right off.
And this is a very common problem on all these units, the brake pads. The double-sided tape they use to put them on.
Turning.
Let go.
See, the brake pad there is come right off, so that might be the problem. Is just the brake pads are
not
go.
Not the full problem.
That one's not off, but it's certainly not in good shape.
As I say, 3 problems. This is the first
I don't
one.
know if that's the only problem or whether there are other problems with this as well.
The brake pads can be fixed without taking the chassis apart. You can do it from the unit just with the top off. Actually, with just the cassette door off. They're accessible. Just stick them back down. This is not going to play in real time. I am going to shorten this down, but I'm going to try to keep as much as I can in just to show you guys the process of doing this, because as these machines age, what I found on this one today, you're probably going to see on a lot of them. I'll just say that. This fault is likely going to show up on other ones, and I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going to check my DAP1 now, because mine might be on its way to going how this one ended up. Typically, these type of faults, when this happens,
remove this cassette basket,
you see it once and you start seeing it over and over again.
Get at. If I pull these cut washers, I might be able to take this basket out, make it a little easier to work on. And of course, remove the springs.
My ceiling fan is getting noisy again. Sorry about that. It was quiet for the longest time, and now it's decided to start squeaking again. So the 2 springs off
now.
and the 2
That's the question. Will this lift
cut
off?
washers, and this will actually lift out quite easy. Although it did take me a few minutes. I didn't want to. I was worried about bending things, so I was being very careful at removing this. But it actually comes out quite easy, and as you'll see, when I do it the second and third time, it just pops out right away. It's not as fragile as it looks. But being that this is the first time I've ever taken one of these machines apart, I've never stripped one of these decks. This is the first time I've stripped one of these decks down like this. So I'm really paying attention to what I'm doing, because I'm learning as I'm going along. I've fixed a number of DAT machines, but this is the first time I've actually taken this type of deck down to this level.
There. Okay, now I got that out of the way. I can now check out this mechanism a little better, because I can actually see what I'm doing and work on it. When I was going into fast forward and rewind, it wasn't this gear wasn't kicking into place, and it might have been something jamming it, like this felt pad that had fallen off, or it might be something else. If I lift these 2 screws out, this might lift out. I've never taken one of these ones apart before, so bear with me here as I figure this out as I go. This should lift this plastic out now, I think. This will lift out. Yes, it will. I don't know why it's getting so dim in here. It's like the lights are getting dim. Okay, that piece comes out. Now we can This is driven by the capsule motor. Okay, that part turns. Spring on here as well. Compression spring that pushes down on this piece. It's like this little piece is sticking. It's a little pendulum gear here. When the capsule motor turns, this should push one way or the other. It's like it's sticking. I'm just gonna see if I can take this off and not have things fly out on me here. That little spring looks like it might be buggered up. This little spring here, it's kind of looks like it's been stretched. That might be why it's jammed or something. Now this thing moves freely. It's this gear. Now this gear moves very freely. Now it can go back and forth. So what was this sticking on? There's a little compression spring that sits on top and it pushes down on this. And if we look at this little compression spring, it looks like it's close up with that. I think that might be the problem. Is that little compression spring there? You see the end of it? That may be the problem. That was this sits on top of this. It sits right in there. But the way that this is bent like this makes me wonder. It looks like someone stretched it. So I wonder if I just nip the end of that off and turn it back into a compression spring, whether that will alleviate the problem. So we'll just cut this damaged part off here.
I think this is somebody else's attempt to fix the problem, which is actually a cracked. Well, I just saw it in the shot, but I didn't notice it because I was concentrating on the spring
Press down.
being deformed. But there's a cracked lever that holds the clutch. See that spring? I think someone stretched that, thinking it didn't have enough tension. So I'm going to fix this problem and find it still doesn't rewind, and then we'll go into it and find the real problem.
So I've trimmed off that bit of the end of that spring that was kind of sticking out. I think it had been bent. Just going to put it back on here and just kind of hold it in place by hand and see when I turn the gear whether the pendulum moves back and forth. It moves that way and it moves that way. So I think that's probably where the problem is. I'm just going to trim a bit more off the end of this spring because it's still kind of stretched. It's still a little bit long. So I'm just going to cut the edge off. It's going to go off camera here for a sec just so that I don't have any pieces falling into the mechanism. We'll put that spring back on like that, and I'm just going to put the little cut washer back on the end here. Holds it in place, hopefully without losing anything. Cut washers are always hard to put on, especially when you've got to put them onto something that's got a spring. Where'd it go? There it is. Cut washers are always fun because, you know, they're easy to lose, so you got to really be careful. And I don't have any spares. I guess I should probably order some in, but I don't have any at the moment. So if I lose a cut washer, I'm kind of screwed until I get a new one. These are probably things that I should have on stock, but I've never lost one yet. Nope. But I got it. There's that. Okay, now the cut washer's on. Let's see whether the gear, this gear here, the pendulum, moves like I expected it should. Over to the take-up side and over to the supply side, depending on what direction it's turning. I think that's the problem solved. Pretty sure that's the problem. Okay, now I got to put these little felt pads back on. I'm going to try to re-secure these. At least they're not missing on this one, so I might be able to put some glue on here and glue these ones back in place. That's the plan anyway. I'm going to put a bit of adhesive on here and try to glue these ones back in place because they're not missing. So there's no point trying to manufacture. The one I had, they were completely missing. They were shot. So I just made some out of double-sided tape. Stuck them in there, and the one I've got is working. But I think this one here I might be able to get away with gluing these back in place with some cement. I'm thinking that black cement that we use for speakers might do the job. Put a little dab of that on the back of these felt pads and put them back in place and let them set up. I think that might do it. So I'm just going to go grab that speaker cement is actually pretty good because it's sticky. Obviously, to stick the foams on speakers, it's sticky, and it remains quite pliable over time, so it doesn't get brittle like some other types. So I think that might be just the perfect stuff to glue those pads back on. Now, people have been calling me a DAT expert. I'll tell you right now, I'm not a DAT expert. I've worked on a lot of DAT machines over the years, so I kind of have a good idea of what goes wrong with a lot of them. I'm by no means an expert, though. You throw me into the digital circuitry on it and I'm as lost as anybody else because I don't really have a lot of experience on the digital side of things. It's more the mechanical side, these being more like a VCR. I treat these mechanisms more like I treat a VCR mechanism, and I've had good success repairing them over the years because really they're not that much different than how a VCR operated, just smaller. Same with mini DV and digital 8. They're really not much different than a VHS machine, just smaller. And these are as small as they get, pretty much. These and mini DV are in the same boat. They're both very small and fiddly to work with. Need the magnifiers here when I'm working on this and a lot of light so I can see what the heck I'm doing. That's the key, I think, to working on a lot of this stuff is you need a lot of light. And sometimes when I'm working on, the light is in the camera view. I can't do a lot about that. I need to see what I'm doing. It's more important for me to see than you guys, even though I know that you guys like to look over my shoulder and see what the heck I'm doing. But in the end, it's I need to see what I'm doing. So sometimes the light will be in the way, and I apologize for that, but that's just the way. Sometimes also my headgear will be in the way if I'm in working close. Like right now, I have no idea whether I'm in the shot. I guess I won't find out until I'm done with this, but sometimes I have to get in real close too because this is can be very, very tedious work. But I think you'll agree that in the end, this is worth it to keep these vintage old machines working. And as much as some people like to slam the DAT format, I love the DAT format. It was really the only tape format I really liked. Sure, reel-to-reel looks cool with those big reels turning. But it's still analog, and it still has hiss, and it still has wow and flutter. It's not perfect. And for tape the average person could buy, DAT was as perfect a recording medium that you could get. Now I know I'm going to hear the arguments from those that are pro mini disc, and mini disc was fine, but mini disc does not have the sound that digital audio tape did. Mini disc is a compressed format, much like MP3. It did not have the sound quality that uncompressed 48 kilohertz rotary DAT, which is what this is, RDAT, did. And yes, these are mechanical. There's more things to go wrong with them. There's more things to wear out, like the head drum. The head drums last a long time. They do eventually wear out, but the heads do last a very long time compared to how a VCR lasts, because there's only half the tape contact. The tape, when it's threaded up on a DAT, only covers a 90-degree arc. So there's very little tension, and the heads are out of contact for 75% of the time. On a VCR, the tape is wrapped 180 degrees, and the head is in contact 50% of the time. As soon as one head finishes its pass, the next head is starting. But on DAT, that's not like that. DAT, it's 90 degrees, so the contact is less. Less contact also means less tape wear. So the tapes, until the tapes actually fall right apart, the tapes actually have been lasting quite well. You know, considering that most of mine were made back in the 1980s or 1990s, I guess, when we got into the DAT stuff. They're at least 35 years old, a lot of them, and they all play. They all play perfect. So I'm just going to let this dry for a few minutes, and then we'll start the reassembly. Okay, time to start putting this mechanism back together. Just drop this piece back in. Like that. And 2 screws to hold it in place. Then the cassette basket again, there's a switch over here that I think this is a switch. Is it a switch or just a lever? It's a lever. Oh, it's a dampening. That's what this is. This is the dampening to there's a little regulator here. You can see the gear on it. That's to control how fast the tape goes, so it doesn't go pop and slams open. This basically just has some silicon oil in there to slow down the speed that it opens, so it doesn't pop right open. So now we'll just reattach there. That one goes in there, and then this one here, so I have to lift this one up, or this dampening arm, and pop it in like that. There we go. It looks like that's going to lock in place. And put these cut washers back on. And then of course the springs that open the compartment. release the latch. That'll open, and then there's the 2 springs that pull it open. Do we remember which one was which? I think the black one was on this side, if I remember correctly. I probably don't remember correctly. Oh well. Pretty sure this was the black one. Don't feel like going back and looking at the video, so if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that was the black one. And then the silver one goes down on this side like this. And hooks on to this other. Like that. There we go. And it'll pop open when I release the catch. Pop open just like that. Okay, now time to reinstall the mechanism in the chassis and check it out. Oh, gotta do this first. Forgot about that. Gotta put the head amp back on. There's a couple screws that hold this in place. Took my car in for service today because there was a piece hanging down below the car. I could just see it. I didn't know what it was. It looked like a cover for something, and it turns out it was the one of the aerodynamic covers. It's like a fiberglass cover, which is attached under the car to help direct airflow into the car. And we'll look underneath it, and it kind of looks like I got hung up on a speed bump. We have these giant speed bumps that are not very forgiving. And if you go over them even at, it's a 30 kilometer zone, 20 miles per hour, but if you go over them at that speed, especially on a low car, you're going to hit bottom. So I usually go through them around 20, because otherwise you're going to drag bottom for sure. Anyway, that's what it was a cover got knocked down, and they just went and reattached it. And then the guy was telling me a story of a guy that just bought himself a brand new $100,000 Corvette. Only owned the car for a couple days, and he comes back because the undercarriage has been ripped out by an aggressive speed bump that his homeowners association had installed on his private driveway. And $1,800 in damage to a brand new vehicle, not covered by warranty. So we're going to put the wiring harness back through here, and we'll reinstall the mechanism, and we'll give this thing a test fly. I'll be able to get these connectors in now that the board is out of the way. Should be able to plug these ones in. Don't give you a lot of room, do they?
No, I haven't been working on this thing for 3 hours. I did stop and go for lunch, so that's why the big time gap. I took off for a while and went and had my lunch and then came back and started working on it again. But yeah, I have been working on this thing for a couple of hours, and there's still a fair bit to go because we're not out of the woods yet.
Yeah, that's those ones. And then there's one more up front here.
The mistake I made was putting the screws in before testing it, because I got to take them all out again.
Okay, I should be able to test this mechanism now, put it through its paces without a tape installed, and see whether the reels turn as they're supposed to, the hubs anyway, and then we can put a tape in it, see what it does. Okay, power on, and this is the eject button, and if I load a tape, or make it think that I've loaded a tape, you'll see that the tape spools are turning. Okay, let's try rewind. Get the camera in a little closer here so you guys can see what's going on. So I press rewind, the take-up spool, or the supply spool, should turn, and it is in fact turning. And if I put it into fast forward, the fast forward reel is indeed turning and into play, and the take-up spool is indeed turning. So I think it's now time to load a cassette and test it out. Now, to answer the question to the troll, I'll call him a goofball. In the last video I published the other day on the DA30 that came in with this one, same shipment, and he said, "What is the point of this video?" And I think I replied sarcastically, "What a stupid question. You know what they say about stupid questions, stupid people." When someone asks, "What is the point of this video?" The point of this video is to demonstrate what goes wrong with these units and what you need to do to fix it. I love it when people send me stuff and pay me to fix their equipment. That's why I'm here. But at the same time, I do produce these videos to try to help hobbyists that really would like to learn how these things work, how they can do it themselves. So now you see what causes this one to eat a tape like it was. So this one here is going to thread up. Now, is it going to play? Let's see here. Let's go into play and see. I haven't cleaned this or anything yet, so it'll be interesting to see what it does. And I have sound. I gotta fix this amplifier again. Volume control's going bad on the right channel. So we have another working DAP1. Go to fast forward. There it goes. Fast forward. Rewind. Oh, we're not rewinding. Why are we not rewinding? It's trying to rewind. What's sticking? Is the tape sticking to something? That's what I'm wondering. Hopefully it's not going to eat the tape when it ejects. Well, let's see if it has enough torque on rewind first of all. So I'll put it on rewind. It actually has quite a bit of torque, but the take-up side is sticking. So maybe the brake's not coming off properly. Let's just look at this a little closer. It's like maybe the brake is sticking. Oh, the brake's coming off, it looks like. But there's, the take-up side is should be turning a lot more free than this. And the brake is not on it. So something's making this hub stick just a tad. We may have to take this mechanism apart yet again, but yet it's fine on fast forward, right? And this one's free. You see how free that one is. The brakes are coming off though. So once again, this time I'll actually pull this board out first before removing the chassis. It just makes it easier, I think, to take everything out. So out come the screws to hold the board in place. Lift the board out. Get that out of the way. Now I can access these plugs a little easier when it comes time to remove it. I'll take out the 4 screws that hold down the chassis again. And these 3. Mechanism will lift out now with the other wires attached to it. Okay, let's get back onto this thing again. I'm going to have to pull this basket out again just to be able to get at this unit here and work on it without the rest of the mechanism in the way. So let's just pull the preamp off one more time just to make things easy to work on. And one more time, remove the basket. I do want to look below the mechanism, so these two screws come out again. Okay, now let's see what went wrong. It's almost like something's jamming this top reel here, because I think this is a clutch of some type. It's almost like something's jamming that top reel. Anyway, I'm going to take these apart and just take a closer look. I know when this swings one way, there is a pin that locks into this, and it's on this pendulum. Something not positioned right on that pendulum. Weird. Or it's just not lifting up right. I think this lifts up and down. It might not be dropping into place properly. This piece here. This is the piece that was sticking with the spring that was called kind of deformed. I believe this piece has to ride up and down depending on what mode it's in. It goes into one mode for play and it drops down for fast forward and rewind, so it might be that it's not in the right position. This is what I'm thinking. Something on this is not right. So I remove the cut washer and the spring again. I'm going to lift this little gear out here this time and take a look at it. Take something else with it. I probably got to remove these brakes to get this out of here. Something in here sticking. I'm sure of it. See, that's supposed to slide all the way down and then it comes all the way up here for the different modes. Take off these hubs here, whether I can get that to lift off a little easier.
So that pin is low. There's a crack in the plastic. That pin that I pointed out earlier with the graphic is supposed to be level with the top of that plastic housing on that lever. That's allowing the gear below it to sit too low. Actually, it's forcing the lever up. The lever is what's used to select between the low torque play and search modes and the high torque for fast forward and rewind. It lifts it up and down. That round piece that you see next to the hub is actually the clutch. So we're going to take this lever out and glue it back together. It's about all I can do because you're not getting apart. And don't even go there with 3D printing. That's not an option. To get to the little pendulum lever, both the clutches have to be removed as well as the brake on the supply side, the brake lever.
I bet you that's what's wrong with it, is that pin pulled through. I bet you that's what happened, is this pin here this pin pulled through here. This is supposed to be seated deeper than it was. Yeah, I bet you that's what it was. This is cracked. There's a crack right here. You can see it. This is where the problem on this thing is. There's a crack right here in this plastic. Can you see it? Will the camera focus? There's a small crack right there. And that is what holds this pin, which has also got a spring on it. It's part of the clutch. This was sitting down here like this, right? And that's supposed to sit more like that. This is a clutch. Okay, so let's just see if we can glue this piece, this pin back so that it's not going to hop down. I think that's our fault right there on this one that we find on second inspection. On second inspection we find this. So let's try to glue this. To get clearance to put this piece back in, I'm going to have to remove this brake. Damn Jesus clips. And that's why you call them that, because they have a tendency to fly away. Okay, that one, just put that one over there, out of the way. I should be able to lift this up now a bit. Hopefully, yes. There we go. Now it's out of the way. I can put this other piece back in once I get it glued. So let's glue this piece together. There's a shot where you can see the crack I'm talking about. I throw some more light on here. You see the crack? Right there. That's why that pin pulled its way through and caused the torque to go down. Alright, I got the glue on here to hopefully keep this idler operational for a while. We'll put the idler back into place and then bring the brake lever back. Drop it down in its proper position. Gotta get it over top of this other one on this side. Lift it up a bit without bringing it all the way off. And push it into place. There we go. Okay, so now I can put the cut washer back on for that one. I believe that was this blue cut washer. Lots of fun. There, is it on? Nope. Now it is though. Okay, that one's back on. Now we'll take this other clutch and put this clutch on. And this clutch over here. And there are two black cut washers to go on them. Need the extra pair of eyeballs to see this one again because it's pretty small and lots of light so I can see what I'm doing. That cut washer on there and push it in place. There, that one's on. And one more for the other one. On, and then the spring, it's going to go back on, and then the other cut washer that goes on to this one over here, the spring to hold this down. And then the last cut washer. There. I think I got that on. That's looking a little better. Yeah, I think that's got it. I think that's got it this time. Finally. Put the mechanism back together one more time, and fingers crossed this time it's going to work, and it's going to work properly. So keep that in mind. That little lever cracks, and just got to glue it back together. It's a good thing to know because I've got a couple of these decks, and they could very well break on mine too. I actually have a spare deck as well that the pinch roller was shot on, so I've got a full spare one of these mechanisms. Okay, that's done. One more time, put on the cassette basket. Taking this thing off so many times, I should be getting pretty good at this by now. It just goes on just like that, and the other side just pops in just like that. Easy peasy. It's like everything else, right? The first time you take something apart and put it back together, you're only done it once, so you're kind of a little more careful, and then after you've put it back together once, then it becomes second nature. You can take these things apart in your sleep. That's what people ask me. Say, well, how come you can take camcorders apart and put them back together so quickly? Well, because I've done lots of them, that's why. And you learn the tricks to do it. Oops, that's the wrong spring. See, it's the black spring that goes on this side. I don't know that it matters, but there might be a different tension on either side. So this one was the black spring. So put the black spring back on this one here, and put the silver spring onto the other one. Okay, so that's got that part back together. Now we'll put on the preamp again one last time. Hopefully this is the last time. And then this thing's going to operate properly. Okay, one last time, put the mechanism back in. Plug in the heads to the preamp. Also, make sure that the belt is in the groove here before you put these back together, because that was a problem on this mechanism. This is the same as I had one similar. Was it a DA30 Mark II, I think, that used this mechanism as well. And I don't think this is quite the same one on the DA40. It might be the same mechanism, but I don't think so. The DA30 is certainly different, but this one was used in, I say, a number of Tascam models. And the 30 Mark II uses it because I've had one with the belt that came off on it and I had to put it back on. I don't remember whether the 40 was the same or different. I kind of think the 40 was a different mechanism, but it's been a while since I've taken one apart. Connector here, there we go. ready for testing, sort of. I think it should work now. Probably forgot to do something. Let's see how it goes through the motions. Rewind. Okay, lots of torque. Lots of torque there. And fast forward. Yeah, I think we're going to be good. Okay, let's try this tape. I'm even so confident that I'll plug the sound back in. Make sure it still plays. Unless I forgot to plug something in. Okay, moment of truth. Rewind. Thumbs up. Rewind the tape back to the beginning, and then we'll play it. Okay, there's back to the beginning. Play. Start right about now. Where's my sound? There we go. Okay. I can't play that. I thought that's not the tape I thought it was. I thought it was my Music Bakery tape. Let me grab my Music Bakery tape here. That one I can't play because that's this is my tape that I record on. That one has commercial music that I can't play. But I can certainly play this one. There we go. Skip forward. Okay, so skip forward. Skip backwards. Skip forward. Why is the skip forward button not working? What else is wrong? Probably just a key switch. Now let's just see. Wonder if it's a button. Well, we'll find it. We'll jump for the switch and see if it goes forward. Yeah, the switch is screwed. Wonderful. See, if I take my jumper and just short the switch, it'll go to the next one. But the switch itself isn't working, so this switch is screwed. Wonder if I got another one. I'll have to look and see. Because the switch is not working. That's what happens with these tactile switches, is they sometimes go bad after a while. So let's just try and pop the top off that one and see if I can get some cleaner into it, because it looks like one that I can take apart. So we'll just remove the power. And I think this top comes off. Yeah, it does. Excellent. And I can now take this out and see this inside here. There's a little copper disc and some connections below it. And typically what happens is when you push it down, this little copper disc just flexes and it makes a connection inside. And what happens is the contacts quite often get dirty inside. So if we pop that little disc out, and it will pop out. Usually you don't even have to do that. Sometimes you can just throw cleaner in. We'll just kind of clean the top of the connection here. Clean here as well. Because this is what this does, is this just, the little disc flexes in and makes a connection between these and the middle when it pops down. and then the little disc goes back in. And it only goes in one way. If you put it in the wrong way, it won't flex. And there's the inside of it. That's the downside. So we'll put the little disc back in. We can actually test. Oops, that's upside down. We can actually test this thing before I put it together as well, by just putting the little plastic top on, little button, as they say, and depressing it. Goes in just like that. Yeah, sort of. Just like that. Now, when I press this button down, it should work. So we'll turn it on and play. When I tap this button, it's more like it. Now it'll move to the next track. I can just put this top back on and snap it back down. You see? Now you guys learned something else. How to fix a switch that's kind of foobar. There, that's a little better. Now I just have to barely touch it. That's how it's supposed to be. And we'll go back one here. We'll go back. I guess I have to rewind the tape a bit. Okay, tape's playing. And I go back. And there it goes. I'll go back 3 tracks. Take me back to track number 1, I guess. There's only 4 tracks on here. Oh, track number 2. There we go. And cues itself up. And then starts playing. I'm going to say this one's done. So let's get this one together. I'll stop it. Stop. Rewind back to the beginning. I like to always rewind the tapes back to the beginning before removing them, just to prevent any damage that could happen when it's threading and unthreading. It usually is not going to happen, but that's when damage will happen. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen when it's threading or unthreading, so I always like to rewind my tapes back to the beginning. Let's put the top and bottom covers on this unit, and then we'll test it out one more time. Alright, the unit's back together now. We'll just run another tape through here, make sure that, where did my tape go? Make sure that everything is still working now that it's all back together. Play. Should start in about 3, 2, 1. Skip forward. Here's our display. Skip backwards. Pause. Play, stop, fast forward, rewind, and finally eject. There we go. This one is done. Back together, complete with this nice tacky rubber. Oh, guy that owns this will clean it up. I'm not too worried about the dust on it. It's going to attract dust. That's just the way it is. It's this ugly rubber. As you saw what it did to mine, I put tape over mine to keep it from attracting dust and dirt. Anyway, back together, working. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.